This here on the left is the new Victron MultiPlus-II 48 volt 3 kVA unit, and this here on the right is the unit that's been out for a while now. It is also a MultiPlus-II, but the big difference is this one here on the left is certified to UL 1741 standards. That means if you have an off-grid installation that requires a listed inverter, you can now use this one here on the left. Let's go over the differences. The first thing you'll notice is the one here on the left that is UL 1741 certified is a roughly 1.5 inches longer. That brings the overall length of this one to 22.5 inches versus the 21 inches of the non-UL listed model. Furthermore, the slots on the non-UL model are long, whereas on the UL model, they're more of a perforation rather than a long slot. I believe that's because the requirement for the UL certification is no openings larger than 1/4 inch in any direction. Inside the wiring compartments, not much has changed here. We still have the same spring terminals here. Now, if you need help using these spring terminals, we have a video guide on how to get your wire in here. There is a little bit of a trick to it, but it has the same AC out 1, AC out 2, and AC in terminal, as well as the positive and negative connections as the non-UL version. The difference being that extra space allows us more room where we can bend our wires to get them into the terminals much easier. Now, the perforations on this internal compartment are the exact same, so those didn't change, and we have some cord grips here on the inside. Those have not changed either. This is the non-UL model. You'll note the current sense input is a little bit different. This is a 2.5 millimeter jack, very similar to what you'd have on an old pair of headphones. They're going away from this connector because occasionally the spring contacts inside would get jammed. So you can see here on the UL model, it is now a terminal block that can be removed, and the new current sensors come with wire ends instead of that 2.5 millimeter jack. But aside from that change that's going to be coming across the MultiPlus line as a whole, there is nothing else really different about this. You're probably dying to know, well, what about on the inside? Let's take a look. There's just a ribbon cable to take these top covers off, and they actually open up really easily. I've already got all the screws removed. And let's take a deep dive inside. Starting with the DC input terminals, those are the same across both inverters. The H-bridge circuit and MOSFET setup is exactly the same. We have a cooling fan that pulls air across, and the output of the H-bridge does go to this little filter board. It's a daughter board setup here. We have the same toroidal transformers, and by the way, you're looking right now at the non-UL version. The output of the toroidal transformers go here onto the power distribution board, and this all is pretty much the same. I'm going to give you a shot now of the UL version. You can see the H-bridge circuit with the fan, the filter board, transformer, and power distribution circuit here inside. Now, the only difference I will note is if I go back to the non-UL version, this electrolytic capacitor here is on the left-hand side of the board, whereas if I pan over here to the UL version, it is on the right-hand side of the board. Inside of these units, that's the only discernible difference that I can find. So I'm willing to guess this is just a change in manufacturing process rather than a change to meet the UL requirements. And looking here at the control board, you can see the main processor chip over here on the left. And if I switch to the other inverter, you can see a very similar setup with that processor chip there on the left. And you can attribute some of these difference in manufacturing processes to the serial numbers. As you can see, this serial number starts with HQ2215. That means this unit was manufactured in 2022 on week 15. And if we switch over here to the UL version, its serial number is 2240, which means it was also manufactured in 2022, just on week 40 instead. So that makes this UL inverter slightly newer than the non-UL version I'm comparing to. However, I went through my inventory and this was the newest non-UL version I had on my shelf. So with all that said, that's the difference between the UL 1741 version of the Victron MultiPlus and the non-UL version. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, and we thank you for choosing Current Connected for your Victron needs.